Yeah, when you're ready.
The launch of the Brexit Party is terrible news for UKIP, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a distraction we could do without. UKIP is the authentic party of Brexit. We've been campaigning for Britain to leave the European Union ever since we were first formed in 1993. So we'd like a clear run.
I'm very sorry, I'm going to have to pause you there. For some reason I'm not getting audio anymore.
I've got it in the pocket.
Yeah, can I have a look at it? So I was getting it a second ago, I don't know what's happened.
You're getting it?
Yeah, yours is fine.
Can you just say anything, we'll just test
Okay, can you hear me? I'm Gerard Batten,
Ah, that's better.
member of the European Parliament for London, UKIP Leader.
Sorry about that, I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage has launched today of the Brexit Party. It's really bad news for UKIP, isn't it?
Well, it's something we could do without. It's a distraction as far as I'm concerned. UKIP is the authentic party of Brexit. It's been fighting to leave the European Union since we were formed in 1993. We'd like a clear run in these elections, but politics is a free market. You can't stop people coming into the market. The voters have to make their choice.
But UKIP's pretty invisible without Nigel Farage. He was your only public figure, really, the most recognisable face, the biggest campaigner. What are you without him?
I've been quite visible as leader, and you're talking to me today, Romney, so I'll be visible on your channel. This is going to be another 5 weeks of this campaign. So first of all, UKIP was raised enough money to send a leaflet to every one of the 27 million households in this country, so they'll be getting our message via the Royal Mail. I'm sure that I'll be doing lots of media during the campaign, and we'll be promoting our message of unilateral, unconditional withdrawal from the European Union. No ifs and buts, a very clear message. And we will campaign on that.
But that's a message that the Brexit Party will be espousing too. The vote is going to be split, isn't it?
Is it? Is it really? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. In the European Parliament this week, on Wednesday, there was a meeting of the Conference of Presidents, the different political groups, and I've been informed today that President Tajani, the President of the Parliament, went round the heads of groups asking them if they favoured an extension to Brexit or not. And I am told that Nigel Farage said he favoured an extension to Brexit, whereas my representative there, Stuart Agnew, said that UKIP did not favour an extension to Brexit. So we are the ones that are standing unequivocally for exit from the EU, but I'm not so sure about where Mr Farage stands on it.
So what are you suggesting his motivation is there?
Well, I think that the Brexit Party is a Tory front organisation. It's a safety valve for the Tory party. It hasn't got any policies. It isn't even a real party. It doesn't have members. It has subscribers or supporters who pay money. It doesn't have policies or a manifesto. UKIP is a real party with a manifesto, real members who've got to vote, and we have a domestic agenda, which the Brexit Party doesn't.
But it has Nigel Farage, and he's stealing all your thunder at the moment.
Well, he isn't stealing my thunder. If you look at social media, we're getting tremendous support from social media, and he's not doing so well. Depends where you look, of course. But politics is a fight. It's a battle. We'll be fighting to win. We'll be fighting with everything that we've got over the next few weeks. Our MEPs will not be celebrities who are going to parade on a platform in Brussels. They will be people who are selected because they are 100% for leaving the European Union, and they will campaign for a real exit from the European Union, for a real Brexit.
Nigel Farage says you've tarnished the UKIP brand and taken it to the far right.
Well, that is a slur. He's known me for about 27 years. He knows the kind of person I am. That is just a complete slur against me and against the party. And if you actually looked at what I've done with the party over the last 12 months, I've taken it up from the point of near collapse, financial and political. We're now very sound financially. We've just raised £500,000 to pay for leaflets, for example, and the money's still coming in. Membership has gone up from a low point of 17,000 up to now it's up to 29, heading for 30,000. So I've actually done a very good job. And I wouldn't be able to do that if people believed the lies and the slurs of the mainstream media and people like Mr Farage.
Well, you say it's a slur, but you've taken on Tommy Robinson as an advisor. What does someone with extreme far-right views and multiple criminal convictions bring to your party?
He hasn't got far-right views. That is just simply not true. And there are convicted...
This is somebody who's been banned from every social media platform for his views.
They're banning lots of other people whose views they don't like as well and deplatforming them, demonetising them. Only certain points of view are allowed now in our politically correct world. But there are people in the House of Commons, isn't there, one notable case of a convicted criminal who's tagged, who's voting on the Brexit process. You've got 4 members of the House of Lords with criminal convictions.
So where would you say Tommy
one
Robinson's views lie?
One of whom is now on serious grooming charges.
Where would you say his views lie in politics?
Well, first of all, he isn't a member of UKIP. Secondly, I took him on just as an advisor. I've got lots of people advising me in different areas. I do not believe that he is far right. I believe he has views which he is entitled to express, and I've never said I agreed with all of his views. I'm sure he doesn't agree with all of mine.
So which views do you not agree with?
Well, I don't know all his views. We'd have to sit in a room and spend a day going through all of them, wouldn't we? I don't have a problem with some of the things that he says. I don't endorse everything that he says.
Will he be standing for you for the European elections?
He can't, because he's not a member of the party, so that was never going to happen. I've explained that to him. If he wants a career in politics and if he wants to join UKIP, that is something that will have to happen after the next leadership elections, which will probably take place now after the European elections, and that will be subject to a vote of all the members, every UKIP member, because we're a democratic party, all the members have a vote, and I would not, even if I wanted to, try to bring him in without the endorsement and a vote of the members, because it's their party, their decision. That's another big difference between us and the Brexit party.
So my question was, what do you think he brings to the party?
Well, he isn't in the party. He would try to advise me on certain things like the grooming scandal that's gone on in the country. And one of the things he wanted to concentrate on, but has been prevented from doing that by the latest problems that he has in his life, is to concentrate not so much on what happened and who was responsible, but who covered it up. The police, the local authorities, the social services and the councils. How did it get to the stage that it did over the last 30 years? Because those people were colluding to actually cover it up.
And you see him as an expert in this?
He knows quite a lot about it. And he knows quite a lot about prison conditions, having spent a bit of time there. On false charges.
What? For fraud? For violence, for assault?
He didn't necessarily go to prison for all of those charges. Where he's been in there recently, where he's been in there recently is because he was on a trumped up charge from the court on. Sorry, I can't. It was a trumped up charge on abuse of the court, contempt of court. I'm sorry. He was on what I would regard as a falsified charge of contempt of court. The court actually then freed him. And now he finds he's on yet another charge to do with that, when in actual fact what the Attorney General should have done was said there was no case to answer and actually closed the book on it. But they're not, because they're trying to destroy him as a human being.
And you turned a blind eye to the convictions for fraud and for violence and for assault?
Some of those convictions he will freely admit to. Others, he says, are dubious, and he explains all this in the book that he's written, Enemy of the State. You know, I accept that some people do commit crimes and they're sorry for them afterwards and they're reformed characters. Sometimes they say that the charges were false charges. He has admitted to some and said that others were false charges. So, you know, that's something I can take a view on. I don't have detailed knowledge of every one, but there are many people in public life who have had previous criminal convictions who then reform and play a useful part in society.
So, sorry, I mean, is this an interview about the European elections, or is it about Tommy Robinson?
It's about Tommy Robinson, isn't it? I mean,
No,
if that's
so
what you want to talk about, what you're going to do now is you've asked me about the European elections. You've focused on Tommy Robinson. You will only show a couple of minutes of this, and you will take the Tommy Robinson stuff.
No, I'm actually doing the European elections. We're interviewing
So why are we talking about Tommy Robinson? It's nothing to do with the European elections.
It's because it is a big part of why people have left UKIP. People like Nigel Farage say they can no longer
Nigel Farage left UKIP back in 2016
because of your courting of the far right.
Nigel Farage wanted UKIP to collapse in 2016. It didn't. He walked away. He didn't want anything more to do with it. He could have run for leadership again when Henry Bolton ran. He could have run for leadership again when I ran. And he could, if he wanted to, probably be leading the UKIP now into the European elections. He doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want a proper functioning democratic party. He wants a dictatorship where he calls all the shots. And that's what he's got in the Brexit party. And that's where I close the interview.
Okay, can we just get the two-shot, which we need to set you up for the piece?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you will only use the bits about Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, nothing about Tommy Robinson.
It's not about Tommy Robinson.
Well, it sounded
but
like it.
I mean, if you don't want questions about Tommy Robinson, you shouldn't take him on as an advisor.
Well, I've had nothing but. I mean, everything I've said. You could look at anything I've said about it.
It's farcical.
But you all ask me. You all ask me the same questions over and over again. Well, why is it on every TV programme or every radio programme? You ask me the same questions. Well, how many answers, the same answers, do you need to the same questions? Why do you need the same answer to the same questions over and over again?
Before, so
I don't know why you don't have Tommy Robinson on. Why don't you have Tommy Robinson?
Because we wouldn't give him a platform.
Then why keep asking me about him?
Why do you think?
Because I never volunteer anything about him. I have never gone to TV or radio and said I want to talk about him. I get asked about him.
But you take him on as an advisor, so of
yes,
course you get asked about him.
Jeremy Corbyn talks to
And
Hamas and the IRA.
2 seconds, can I get Romilly talking for 10 seconds, please?
So this is just to set you up and to introduce you into the piece. So I tell you what we're doing with this. The first day of the European elections, so we are looking at how well Labour will do, we're looking at the setting up of the Brexit party, we're looking at whether votes will go hive off from the Tories to UKIP or to the Brexit party.
Need it non-sync?
And whether...
For a question?
No, that's absolutely fine. So as long as you've got us both in set up, that's fine.
Any reverses?
No, that's great.
Fine.
Thank you. We're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
You'll have to bear with me, I just need to send this over.
Yeah, you
take
can.
another
Don't worry.
5-10 minutes.
So it honestly is a piece about the European elections.
Well, I'm
We've got
surprised.
about
I've had this happen often.
The fundamental point is, look, Tommy Robinson is not a candidate. He's not going to be a factor in the European
But you've got
elections,
Farage today saying that UKIP has
of course he
become
did,
a far-right party, so it is part of... I'm afraid it's part of the story.
Yeah, but he's lying,
So-
you know, and we've... Look, I'll tell you what's going to be interesting. We are going to be running a candidate in the southeast who's a former personal assistant to Nigel Farage for the past 3 years. She knows a lot about what went on in there, and we will be promoting her as well. So I would like to set up some interviews going forward with her. There'll be some very interesting stuff on that that you'll find. But
I mean, not London, ITV News.
you know, we're just sick of answering the same questions
on
at this point. It's just,
And he hasn't been able to tell me very much because his life has been under such threat. His life is under threat. His wife is threatened with rape. His children are threatened. He can't find somewhere to live because the police will not protect him in his own house, and that's the pressure
just
that he
because we're a bit
lives
pressed for
under.
time, I thought I'd just set.
Yeah, so he hasn't actually been able to provide me with a lot of the information I would have liked to have got because his life has been consumed with this, and most people would have collapsed under that kind of pressure.
Why is it
You've got to tell you why, because he's a brave and heroic man who stands up for what's gone wrong in this country to protect the victims of what's gone, and he isn't far right, and I wouldn't have anything to do with anybody that's far right. I've been part of a democratic, the EDLE left then because it was infiltrated by elements of the far right, and probably by the security services who use these people to destabilise organisations that they don't like. You know that, you're intelligent enough to know that's what happens. This set up as a spontaneous movement in Luton, when troops who were coming back from the Iraq War were insulted on the streets and demonstrated against. That was a reaction against that, and the drug dealing and the enforced prostitution and the grooming that goes on in places like Luton. It started up spontaneously. It's then infiltrated because the people who ran it didn't really understand how to organise something like that, and indeed it's very difficult. We know how we've been tried to be infiltrated over the years. When it got to that state, he left. Now, you may not like him, you may not agree with him, but he isn't far right, and I'm not far right. And it's a cheap smear that why can't we just talk about politics? And if you want to talk about far right, ask Nigel Farage why he's employed a former member of the National Front for years down in his office. Yeah? I've never employed anybody from the BNP or the National Front. UKIP is the only party. It's a chap called Martin
Hewitt.
Martin with a Y. Who I've got nothing against because he says, 30 years ago or something, he joined an organisation, then he regrets it. Okay, he's another reformed character. But it's a bit rich for Farage to attack me. He's a hypocrite, I'm sure you're aware of that in many ways, more than one.
He's a politician, isn't he, first and foremost? He says whatever he thinks is going to help his cause.
Which I don't, I say what I believe.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's definitely saves the day. Alright,
So is that gone back?
It will be very soon.
I'll just text
I mean,
next coming.
Yeah, sorry, Catherine's running down my line.
Catherine knows?
No, she doesn't.
Okay,
she's trying to get through to me.
I could tell you things, but I can't because I'm not at liberty to do it, and it makes me sick when he stands up there and tries to smear me. And the things I could tell you if I was at liberty to tell you.
From ITV News, I've managed. Can you hear me?
Believe me.
But it doesn't do your cause any good that that side of politics is now split between two separate parties.
Yeah, but he didn't want to run. My opinion was back in 2016 when he walked away and then Bolton came on, that he wanted UKIP to collapse. And I've told these So he'll tell you it's true. I said my view was his longer term strategy was he thought there was an outside chance that there'd be European elections. And that Brexit wasn't going to happen because we all knew it was going to be betrayed. You don't need to be a prophet to see that. He knew it was going to be betrayed, so he thought there was an outside chance that there will be European elections, and therefore, well, he didn't want to run with UKIP because it's got the inconvenience of a National Executive Committee and members who vote, and doesn't want that kind of thing. He's always stated he would like to be one man. He admires Geert Wilders because he doesn't have members, he just has subscribers. So my view is that he deliberately didn't do anything to try and help save UKIP. He was perfectly happy for it to disappear down the toilet pan back in last February, because then if there was a European election, as there are going to be, the great Nigel could step into the limelight and say, I'm going to start a new party and we won't have all this inconvenience of democracy and NECs and members, and I'll say exactly what's going to happen and who the candidates are going to be. And that's what you've got. Unfortunately, we didn't die from his point of view, and we're still there, and we're going to fight tooth and nail for this, because what he's going to end up with, if we go back, is a bunch of time-serving opportunist pocket fillers. He's already got a few of those lined up. He selected in the last I had nothing to do with the selection of the candidates 5 years ago, and you can get the measure of them by seeing what they do. They spend 5 days a week there shoveling the 320 tax-free euros into their pockets.
Well, exactly. I mean, but that's the big irony of all this, is what is the point of sending
when we did it,
fundamentally disagree with the whole European project
it's very simple, because it's proportional representation and we can win. If we had proportional representation in Westminster, you'd have had UKIP MPs years ago, but we don't.
No, but what is the point of sending people who don't believe in that project
well,
there? Because actually important legislation is worked out there, and if 24 of the MEPs don't even turn up.
Well, they do turn up. They turn up for the plenary sessions.
UKIP has had a terrible
No. Well, they turn up for the plenary sessions when we vote on the legislation. Now, what you've got to remember is when you see these figures, when you see the figures on people with 75% attendance, no, what they're actually, the only thing that they can measure is the roll call votes during the plenary sessions. A lot of that voting is frankly on what's called own initiative reports, which are not legislative. And quite frankly, I've got up sometimes and gone back up to the office to do something useful, like reply to emails from constituents, because there is no point in voting on a hot air report from some MEP on shouldn't we have a uniform size for garden chairs, you know? I've got better things to do. But the legislative stuff we do conscientiously vote on as much as possible. I've missed a few sessions because I've been ill. You know, I had an operation that made me miss 2 sessions. But by and large, we turn up and we vote on the legislation. But we're not there to make it a talking shop work. And as I said, it's the only job in the world where you get paid for turning up. You get a massive salary, plus you get 320 euros a day tax-free just for turning up. And you don't have to do anything. You'd like a job like that, wouldn't you?
I certainly would.
Well, there you are, you see. In the first term, we had people elected like me, Graham Booth, who's now dead, I can't think of his name now. We had various, and Godfrey Blooms and others, where people who were long-time UKIP activists who didn't, you know, we didn't necessarily need the income. I mean, I was on 5 years unpaid leave from my job for the first 5 years. I could have gone back any time I liked. And what you had subsequently is opportunists who've gone in because they thought, oh, it's a great place to make a living. And what we had in the second term and the last term were people who couldn't make it in the Tory party. You look at the number of failed Tories that we had, and they were recruited by Nigel in a pub. That's his normal modus operandi. So because he is basically a Tory. He's a Tory that is in exile. This is what I've said about UKIP. For a long time it was dominated by people who treated UKIP as a refugee camp for Tories in exile. I'm trying to change that. And what you will see, I think in this election, is we're going to get massive more support in the north of England. And there's a lot of people up there who understand what people like Tommy Robinson are talking about, and they want to vote for something different. Where Farage will concentrate, in my opinion, is down in the south, where you can get the old Tory vote.
Yep.
So,
it will be fascinating. Tam, is that sent?
It's sending.
Oh, sending. Okay.
Hello, press office.
Tories will be wiped out.
Well, they deserve it. That doesn't. You see, I'm not a Tory. It doesn't bother me. I don't want Corbyn. I don't want a Marxist government. But on the other hand, do I want the Tories? No, not really. And they're both going in the same direction anyway, which is that they want to have full integration with the European Union. I don't understand why Corbyn does, because that's the only thing that me and him had in common for 4 years, was opposition to the EU. unless it's a...
Well, he doesn't want that, but the rest of his party does.
Unless it's a skillful Marxist-Leninist ploy, and if he gets in government, he'll say, oh, do you know all these things we wanted to do, like renationalise, etc., we can't do them because EU directives prevent us, so we want to leave. It would be ironic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, they've got Rees-mogg's sister.
I know,
That's
well,
their
that's,
big
that'll send out a clear message to a lot of people, won't it?
candidate.
You won't have any